Heil Hitler or whatever.
Assassinate the president, assassinate, kill people, become violent. We're going to kidnap 1,000 governors. Everything you read is absolutely true.
I don't just say this stuff. There's deep thought analysis on everything I say.
There you go.
Attacks on blacks are imminent.
So today, I'm here deep in the heart of Texas, and I wanted to respond to more of our detractors, but actually just one in particular, a very vocal one, Alex Jones, who recently gave a little bit of a rant on one of his episodes, mostly in particular about Patriot Front. And his reasonings, he was calling us feds, he was making a lot of very baseless, very wild accusations, and I thought we could watch it together. And I was going to give my my honest and unscripted responses, and hopefully we can uncover a lot more about where these accusations are coming from, what the truth of the matter is, and we can all walk away with a better understanding of where the facts lie. So let's go ahead and get it started.
And there's total hype that the #1 terror threat's white people. They're going to kill everybody. It's super rare, but they say it's imminent, and it's the #1 terror threat, and the white people are just going to, and you've got Patriot Front that pile out of cars, and they track them back and prove their leaders are feds.
What Alex Jones is referring to right there about piling out of cars, which we do, but tracking back and proving their leaders are feds, this has never happened. I could offer Alex Jones to pay all of his legal fees if he could provide me an example of where that happened. But he would not be able to do so, because what he's giving here as an example, stating it as obvious and undeniable fact, is most likely something that he heard on Twitter or that he came across in a outlandish Gateway pundit article headline and is simply assuming it as fact. I don't think that Patriot Front needs to be something which Alex Jones is considered a subject matter expert on, and we won't necessarily occupy a significant portion of his news intake, which is fine, but if he is going to make declarative statements without any evidence or any actual personal knowledge of what he is talking about, he should be more careful. Let's keep going.
And you never hear Patriot Front in the news like, oh, white supremacists marched today. Always in a key battleground area. Always at a black event.
He's referring to two things there, and both of them are extremely wrong. So always in a key battleground area, you'd assume a swing state in an election, right? Patriot Front has recently demonstrated in such notable swing states as West Virginia, Tennessee, and Texas, and New York. None of those are swing states. In fact, we do all of our events in all sorts of states. We do them in red states. We do them in blue states. We do them sometimes in swing states. But that's the point. It doesn't really matter. There's no correlation because we're not trying to swing the election one way or the other. If I was trying to swing the election by being in a swing state, you think I would endorse a candidate or the other one, but I'm not doing that. So it kind of makes the whole always in swing states, battleground states, whatever you want to call it, it kind of makes that accusation fall flat, because why would we be in swing states exclusively, which we're not, if we weren't endorsing candidates or trying to influence the election, which we're not. Secondly, this is always at a black event. First of all, this is actually, not always, but there is only one example I think he's referring to, which is in Paducah, Kentucky. We had a demonstration, a protest, to a known pedophile in Paducah who was improperly prosecuted by the city prosecutor, or the county, whichever it was, but it was improperly prosecuted and ended up escaping what would have been a proper application of justice in that scenario. Now, as the marchers went on their way from City Hall to the courthouse, or from the courthouse to the city library or downtown, something of that nature, they walked past a church primarily occupied by blacks, having some sort of sermon. They were coming in, they were coming out of the building, something like that. The marchers did not engage with them. They did not speak to them. They did not speak about them. Nothing in the speech at the demonstration had anything to do with them. But of course, to justify the victim complex of these individuals, who probably saw it as a great example to get some much-needed publicity for their congregation, and to portray themselves as the ever on the fringe of victimization, they decided that actually this Patriot Front protest, which was explicitly about one thing in particular, was actually all about them. and they were the focus of this, and that's what the article said. And of course, it was baseless, and we even denied it on one of our publications on that news. So Jones probably saw one of those headlines, the mainstream media that he doesn't trust about anything except for Patriot Front, swallowed it hook, line, and sinker, and is now regurgitating it to his audience without any citation, without any context whatsoever. Let's keep going.
You know, like a black preacher event, just black folks going to worship Jesus, and then here comes 200 guys saying Heil Hitler or whatever.
Activists have never said that at a demonstration. Moving on.
And the black folks are like, man, there's Nazis everywhere. But then the news never investigates Patriot Front or never asks who they are because...
The news, on multiple occasions, has published the identities of members of Patriot Front. This is another baseless lie that comes out of conservatives very frequently and can easily be resolved with a Google search.
Because they're feds. They may have some useful idiots in their group that they're using to wind up and prepare for something, but think Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot, but 1,000 times bigger.
This is an interesting accusation, because if you're comparing it to the Whitmer kidnapping plot, which I believe in total accounted for less than a dozen individuals that were seriously involved in the plot, and occurred entirely over the span of a number of months, there is a very sparse amount of similarity between the Whitmer plot and Patriot Front, because we're not preparing for any great happenstance. We are doing what we are preparing to do every week, every month, every year. What we're preparing to do is more of what we're already doing, and you know what we're doing, Mr. Jones, because we publish it all the time. We do activism, we do education with workshops, right? We do community service, we do charity work, we do donations, we do disaster relief, we do fitness, we do sporting competitions, we do training, we do things of that nature. Our activism is all published, our actions are all published. You know what we do. There's no great plot, there's no great plan to do something that we already aren't doing or can expand into. There's no plot to assassinate or kidnap anybody. If Patriot Front was a plot to become violent, to be some big violent entity, then you think there would be a single example in the entire organization's 7-year history of violence, but there isn't. So either this plot is so poorly made that it's doing everything but violence over the span of almost a decade, mind you, or it's not, which you can judge for yourself. Let's keep going.
This is it right here. And this is the kind of guys that'll try to wind up to go after me.
I'm not going to go after Alex Jones. Nobody is. Not anybody that I work with. I have nothing personally against Alex Jones. I just think he's wrong about a number of things. And don't worry, Mr. Jones, if you're watching this, and I hope you are, we're not coming after you. So rest easy.
And these are the type of guys that are winding up to go after Trump. Because, see, they don't want...
We're also not going to go after Trump in anything other than the rhetorical space. I really don't know where this is coming from. Again, we are vocal critics of the presidential administrations, past and present, and we obviously disagree with a lot of things about what Trump says and does on the campaign trail, off the campaign trail, whatever. But the idea that we're going to go after, try to hurt, we're going to try to assassinate the president. What is that? What he's claiming? Absolutely ridiculous. It's coming straight out of his rear end. Let's keep going.
Want a leftist to kill Trump in the next assassination attempt. They're going to want somebody out of a group like that. Listen to me. I don't just say this stuff. There's deep thought analysis on everything I say. I spend most of my time thinking, not talking.
I might push back on that one, Mr. Jones. I would beg to differ. Let's keep going.
I hate even having to come on the air. I really need to be thinking and coming up with how to counter them. So,
if Mr. Jones wanted to really counter Patriot Front, he could do his arguments a lot of benefit by actually looking into what the organization publishes and does, even actually reading some of the articles under those headlines that he is kind of scraping and referencing here. He could interview me. Now, I don't think he would, because it would mess with a lot of his rhetoric here, but I would be willing to have a polite conversation with the man. I just don't think that's super likely, given the circumstance and the caliber of these arguments. But Patriot Front is not going to assassinate anybody. Patriot Front is not going to go out there to attack anybody, least of all Donald Trump or Alex Jones. Our value is in criticism, leading by example, right? Criticism of the status quo, and then showcasing an alternative to it with our lifestyle, with our words, with our rhetoric. And we hold a mirror to the conventional political spectrum when we do these things. And this is already effective. I have no incentive to go out there and try to start violence or kill people, least of all. It would gain me nothing. It would gain the organization absolutely nothing. If anybody out there, and I'm sure, there are feds out there who are watching the organization, who don't like what the organization does, and we take that seriously, of course. It should be known that there is no incentive that the organization has to engage in violence. What we're doing is already working. We are peaceably operating within the political landscape. We're able to recruit plenty of new members. Trust, we have no issue with that. We're able to reach millions of new people with our activism. Trust that we have no issues with that. And we are able to adeptly navigate the legal framework of the country without compromising on our ideals too much and without making sure that our opponents in the legal spaces have too easy of a time hurting people that we care about. So where would the incentive or the motive be for violence? It doesn't make any sense. It's absolutely baseless. Let's keep going.
They got their white supremacist groups all heated up, all ready to go, all ready to pounce.
Alex Jones has used the term white supremacist now a few times, and I get what he thinks he's saying, but you notice he never defines anything in particular that I or the organization has said, by extension, that he calls white supremacist. And I think he would have a hard time doing that, because anything that he could cite as white supremacy, first of all, which he's, again, he doesn't trust the mainstream media, he doesn't trust their labels, he doesn't trust their rhetoric, they're fake news, of course, except when it comes to Patriot Front. And then Nazi, white supremacist, Fed, it's everything you read is absolutely true, just swallow it whole. But he wouldn't be able to cite what he believes is white supremacy without potentially alienating a good portion of his audience, which is why he won't do it. He's trusting people to not look past the label, which is frankly what libelous labels like that are for. Let's keep going.
It's all ready to launch. And then there's giant riots, destabilization. And then Trump gets saddled with it while he's president-elect. And then there's a constitutional crisis. And then Trump gets assassinated.
Okay, so Patriot Front exists. This is his theory, that Patriot Front exists to mess with the country in the event of riots or a constitutional crisis or Trump getting assassinated. Okay, so why didn't Patriot Front do what he thinks, Whitmer times 1,000, right? We're going to kidnap 1,000 governors or something, according to Jones. Why didn't that happen in 2020 when all the riots were going on? Why wasn't Patriot Front involved in J6? Because we weren't. What about COVID? What about Trump getting all these legal charges thrown against him? Why didn't we do anything at the courthouse to ruin his case or something, which we're not going to do? Why? You could keep going, right? What about any of the foreign war stuff, right? Why didn't we engage in any of these things to mess the country up? If this is a plot, what's the end goal here? Like, when is the secret plot going to finally be sprung? Well, the thing is, all these momentous moments keep happening, and the organization maintains its principled stance and keeps organizing and keeps growing and keeps helping people improve their lives and their situations and their communities. Because it's working, because that's what we're doing, it's working. Because participating in riots wouldn't work for us. Because engaging in the political maelstrom that surrounds Donald Trump would not be productive for us. And absolutely, I have no intention of torpedoing mine and the lives of everybody I work with to fulfill some crazy Fed narrative that Alex Jones has cooked up in order to sell more water filters. Let's keep going.
Congress impeaches him before he there's 1,000 things that go into all of this. But this is total New World Order, total financing, and the leadership of these groups, I would bet my right arm, our ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center, as the front groups with the CIA behind it, orchestrating.
Mr. Jones, I do not want your right arm. I would be entitled to it by this promise of yours, but I do not want it. All that I think I could ask from you is a more honest evaluation of this thing. And I get it. I think there is an element to it that Jones, he might be running out of people he feels like he can criticize without entering civil litigation, which I respect. And he sees Patriot Front as somewhat of a soft target in this regard, because I'm not going to sue Mr. Jones, at least not in any foreseeable future. But seriously, this type of outlandish accusations actually incentivizes people to have very negative, very potentially harmful opinions towards those who are doing good things, who are good men, who live good lives. And you see this with the aftermath of what happened in Portland, I think, a year or two ago, where Proud Boys attacked another a local nationalist club, calling them racists and potentially also calling them feds or accusing them thereof. And these people were incentivized to this opinion, which was false, by essentially vocal conservative, establishment conservative pundits on Twitter or X. And because of that, they went out and they wanted to follow that lead, and they attacked people. And they tried to dox them. They failed, of course. And then they said that this is Patriot Front. But not only was that club not Patriot Front, the people they identified was not the person there, and the person there was not in Patriot Front, nor was the person they identified, nor was he a Fed. It was a complete misinformation carousel of nonsense. But it all started with rhetoric like this. And I'm not going to claim victim status. I'm not going to cry about it, because there's plenty of people in the political spectrum that don't like Patriot Front. But if you're going to oppose us, if you're going to think negatively about me, it should at least be about things that are true, things that I actually believe, things that I actually do. But I get the sense that it's harder to do that. So you do what Jones does and speak out of one's rear end. Let's keep going.
The whole thing. And the ADL's been caught running white supremacy groups before. So that's where we are. So they attack white people. The media says whites are demons and whites are the devil and massive crimes against whites and Soros DAs everywhere not protecting white people or police.
That's absolutely right. They do say these things. They do say white people are evil. They are dispossessing white people in the land that they call home, namely America, in the country that we know and love. And that we organize to defend. They're doing all these things. They're stacking the legal system with corrupt DAs, like he says. So you don't think they can call white people the devil for years and years and years without at least a couple hundred of those white folks stepping up and saying, hey, we're not going to take this anymore. Hey, we're going to organize in a community and a brotherhood of people who think like we do and think that not only being of our heritage, not only white, but of the European race and of the American nation, that is not only okay and acceptable in society, but it's great, that it is our birthright, that it is deeply intrinsic to who and what we are, that it's something we should actually fight to preserve and perpetuate? You don't think that is the natural conclusion when the heritage and the being and the identity of the people who built this country is treated in that way? If you think that it isn't, frankly, you have the same negative opinion of white folks that the media does. Because if you think people will lie down and take that sort of rhetoric for years and years and years and take their country being taken from them without doing anything in response, well, frankly, you don't think that we're any better. And that's something to chew on. Let's keep going.
Police, when they get attacked for no reason. And then here comes the saviors in there to tell you all this and to lead a movement against it valiantly. And then suddenly certain avenues are opened up for the groups to be able to speak and talk and organize.
Avenues are not opened up for us to speak and talk and organize. We have to abide by a lot of legal precautions for our marches, and we have to circumvent censorship on almost every single platform there is, notably most of the ones that Alex Jones speaks on. So the idea that avenues are opened up for us to speak and get our message out, then why is every account that speaks positively of Patriot Front banned on X? What about Rumble, where our account was recently suspended? What about YouTube, right? These are if avenues were opened up for us to speak, then you think any of these would be possible to, these social media platforms would be possible to navigate without censorship. But that is not the case, because these avenues are not open to us. Let's keep going.
Which is fine in the First Amendment, but it's done at a certain point to then create the catalyst. So I'm going to tell you, right-wing, anti-black, and I'm not even saying...
He circles back around to the anti-black thing. And Patriot Front does not exist for the advocacy of blacks. And frankly, their interest in the country is not something that the organization treats as its singular focus. But the idea that this is some prime motivation is just something that Alex Jones is pulling up out of a single news article about a protest, which actually had nothing to do with blacks.
Think about Patriot in front of me, saying that's the type of group they're trying to recruit from. Attacks on blacks are imminent because the globalists have got black leaders they control, they've got media they control, and they think they can kill a bunch of black people and then use that as the trigger or the detonator for all hell to break loose everywhere.
So Alex Jones said these attacks were imminent. This clip is already a couple weeks old, and it's only going to get older. I wonder what the time frame for imminent is, according to Alex Jones, before he's willing to withdraw this statement, especially in relation to Patriot Front. And he says, oh, this may not be Patriot Front, but groups like it. Okay. But we're the only one he mentioned. So I'm going to take it as if he's primarily talking about us. How long is imminent? How long does that last before this statement expires and goes bad like a carton of warm milk? And I'm hoping Alex Jones will do the reasonable and honorable thing as a man and withdraw his statement and any other that are provably false about the organization. I may be holding out hope in vain here, but the primary point of me filming this video, and that's the clip pretty much, that's all the good stuff in it. The primary point of me speaking out on this thing is that this sort of rhetoric is being pushed by a lot of popular, very, very important and impactful conservative leaders. They're important to the conservative movement, that is, in order to herd their audience. And I genuinely think that a big aspect of it is maybe not that, oh, it's actually them that are feds. It's actually them that are astroturfed. And, I'm sure that's possibly part of it. I'm not going to return the Fed accusation with as little evidence as they do, though. But a big thing is they want to prevent their audience from becoming more acquainted with nationalism. And when I say nationalism, I mean true nationalism. I mean the ethnically based, race-conscious form of nationalism that we embody. And frankly, that is simpatico with the history of the nation. From the 1600s of the settlers that first composed the nation of America, all the way to 1965 with the cultural Marxist coup that took place among a bunch of other people. So, conservative leaders and influencers are trying to prevent their audience from engaging with these ideas, so they put up the Fed, New World Order, crazy blockade of information in between their audience and our ideas. But this tactic has already been employed, and it fails. Because as soon as people see what we are and what we're doing, it melts away. And for somebody like Jones, it's theoretically okay to claim that, oh, it's actually aliens that run the government, or it's interdimensional demons that run the government, or it's the Illuminati that runs the government. But you can't make statements about perhaps Jews being more influential in the country than they have any right to be, disproportionately or proportionally. You can't make a statement about race being a factor that affects society, whether it's by nurture or by nature or by both. You can say that it's aliens, but heaven forbid you say that race is something which is founded in, the human genetic structure, which it obviously is. And it might have effects on how societies are constructed and civilizations are occupied, which it obviously does. So you have to realize that these lies that are being fed to this audience is a method of control, just as much as Jones suggests that other organizations are adopting methods of control for them. I'll leave you with this. Mr. Jones, if you're watching this, and maybe somebody will send it to you, maybe not, but if you're watching this, I am open for a conversation. If you want to seriously talk facts, seriously talk ideas, if you're about free speech, and you claim that you are, so am I, then let's have a conversation. I'm in Texas, you're in Texas, we can make it work. There should be no need for people on the ends of the political spectrum, as we are, to not be able to speak with one another. If you take the straightforward approach of speaking truth to power and adopt the masculine virtue of backing up your statements with truth, you should have no issue at all having a conversation with me. So I'll leave that offer there. And I'll leave the rest of you with all the information that we displayed today, and I hope you have a good one. There you go.